recording started. So thank you, Rich, for sharing this slide. Perfect. So it will allow attendees to join now. I'll give it maybe a minute or so. Wonderful. A lot of familiar faces, names actually, a lot of familiar names here. This is great. Hi, everyone. We're taking maybe just 30 seconds to let people join the Zoom, and then we'll get started. Hello, hello. Okay, I'm assuming the count will be going up a bit. We're also coinciding with another event, I know, so people might be jumping between two meetings, or maybe you just watch it in recording later. Fine with me, whatever the choice is. So where's everyone connecting from? Do me a favor, type up the location that you're dialing in from. Okay, we've got Bay Area, North Carolina, Texas, Amsterdam. Oh, that must be pretty late in Amsterdam. Oklahoma, Rich is in Rhode Island. So I myself in San Diego, California. I know Ajay is as well. Wow, perfect. LA I got. Nice. So we're gonna I'm at about okay. I think this is good. We're at about 1/3 of the registrants, so we can get started. Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you for joining. Congratulations actually on making this, because I know Workday, a lot of things happening. So congrats on continuing learning, continuing staying up to date with the industry. This is really all you guys. I looked at the quote to start this off with, and I found a quote by Stephen Hawking. He said, intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. And I find that we're in this industry that's changing rapidly. A lot of new things, new technologies are coming around to really help us with our jobs. But then it's really hard to like stay up to date with new advancements. And when you take the time to learn and kind of get yourself familiar with those new things, you're doing a big effort, right? So congratulations on that. I'm joined today by two great minds. I have Rich Hathaway. He's from over in INTRICITY. SqlDBM and INTRICITY are partners. We kind of join forces a lot of times when it comes to helping clients with their digital transformations. And that's how it comes around. Ajay is with me at SqlDBM. Ajay is head of product at SqlDBM. And Rich, he's an enterprise data solutions architect at INTRICITY. Rich has worked on deploying Snowflake in Fortune 500 accounts. So I'm excited for him to share some educational content with us. And then he'll be joined by Ajay. And Ajay will go through a live demo, actually, of SqlDBM's functionality in when it relates to data management and continuous integration. So Rich, without me, wasting any more time, please take this over from me.
Excellent, thank you. It's great to be here with everyone today. This is a really interesting topic. I've been working in the data space for over 30 years now, a little bit longer than Arwen, the data warehousing cat behind me. She hasn't been working quite that long in the database space, but so it's interesting. I've seen many things come and go. SqlDBM, pretty exciting stuff. I love working with the SqlDBM team, and I love working with SqlDBM, with the software, and it's a wonderful thing. Today we're going to talk about CICD, and data management. And it's really kind of interesting. This is something when I started, nobody even talked about this. Of course, this has been a long time coming, but over the past number of years, we've heard a lot more about CI/CD. It's been, continuous integration, continuous deployment. This is something that's been being used a lot by application development projects, and it's something that for years people have been saying, well, we need to use this with our data management projects, with our database projects, and I'm one of the ones that's been pushing back on that for years, in other data folks that I work with. And so the first thing we wanted to talk about was a little bit about why in the past have data projects not really embraced CI/CD. We'll talk a little bit about Agile, CICD, and DevOps, how you hear those terms kind of interchangeably, but they're really kind of different, and how do they all fit in with what we're talking about. And then I want to talk a little bit about what's changed. Why is it that now we can actually start not only really talking about CI/CD, DevOps, DataOps, all of these things together, but how is it, what's changed to allow us to actually start doing these things and building these into our processes and our pipelines and really moving these things forward, which is very, very exciting with what's going on. But first of all, so some of the reasons why data projects haven't embraced CI/CD, there's really some real kind of barriers and roadblocks there that we've been dealing with for years. First of all, databases, the development of databases, it's different than a development of an application. They're very complex. Database projects can become very, very complex, and they're sensitive. And we've got data that's linked to these structures. And so it's not like just changing some code somewhere. If we go in and we change the structure of the database, we're impacting the data. And if we do things that cause issues with the data, if we drop a column, for example, or we do some of those types of things, they could cause really big problems for our system. So it's something that's been a kind of a barrier as in the past to applying CI/CD methodologies and Agile and DevOps in this space. Also, there's really been a lack of automated code testing and reviews. You think about in the past when we were deploying a new table or something like that, it's always been the DBA, right? And they kind of have their own little kingdom too. Like the Oracle DBA, it's like, stay away from our database. Nobody gets to touch anything in here except for the DBA, and they're going to hold on to that with all that they can, not let anybody have any impact on that. Because again, that data, it's linked to that structure. So if you just, let's say you went in and you said, all right, we're going to change this table, and you created a DDL script to go and change that table. Well, you can't just run that DDL script. You can't recreate that table. You lose all that data, right? So we've got to have the proper scripting and all those types of things. In the past, there's been really a lack of source code controls with data type structures. Again, you could have the DDL scripts, but do you have the alter scripts? A lot of times, in my experience, you see those things aren't really created. They haven't been in code repositories. There's not a lot of controls there. In the past, with databases, modeling has really often been an afterthought, right? You go in and you'll create the structures, and you'll create a bunch of tables, and you'll try a bunch of things, and then afterwards you go and put that into an ERD so that you can share that with some folks. SqlDBM is changing all of that. It allows us to really model and take all those steps in the right part of the process, in the right steps, so that we can do that ahead of time, so we can really see what's going on, and then we can generate the scripts. And I'm very excited to see with Ajay's demo, and for y'all to see that with the integration with GitHub, we're really taking it a step further. So we've also had siloed database teams, right? Here's a SQL Server team, here's our Oracle team. This team is managing this data. And there's all these disparate data sources that are coming all over. We're storing them all over. And it made it very, very complex. And so it was very difficult to take these types of projects and apply the Agile, the CICD, the DevOps, and those methodologies and that culture and those processes there. And the change management process with databases, it's really been, historically, it's been a long process. It's not something, CICD, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but it's really intended to be, I mean, by name, right? Continuous integration, continuous deployment. And historically, data projects have been, 6-week releases, 8-week releases, for any changes to the database, and then you have to shut everything down for a couple of days, and so there really have been, some roadblocks in being able to get to this point where we can move forward on the data project side, the data management side, and kind of catch up with the application development side. So let's talk about what are some of these changes. What's going on in the industry that have allowed for these changes? So first of all, cloud technologies, right? Like Snowflake, like the tools like SqlDBM. We've got the ability now to remove some of the barriers. So with the cloud database, we can bring in data from all of our different data sources. We can bring in streaming data. We can bring in data from our financial systems, our marketing systems, our operational systems. We can bring all of this data into one place. And what that tends to do is that really breaks up those silos, and it allows, or it forces our different groups to play together and to work together, because all of that data is in a single place. We're no longer limited by storage and compute. Those limitations are gone. And so, as these things are changing, it allows us to really take advantage of these new technologies and put new processes in place in the way that we not only develop our code, but how we implement our code, how we deploy our code, how we do testing with our code for our data projects. Another big thing that's driven this is really the change from ETL, or extract, transform, and load, to ELT. In the past, we might have a bunch of different data sources, and we would create some ETL process where we'd extract data from each of those data sources. We'd do all kinds of transformations on those, and then we'd load them into this little data silo or this little data mart. We'd load some more into another place over here. With the cloud technologies and with the ELT world, or the extract, load, and transform, we can take all of our data from all of our different data sources. We can land that data into our cloud database, like Snowflake, for example, into a raw schema that we've modeled out, in SqlDBM, and then we have the ability inside of that data estate to be able to transform that data, to move it through the pipeline, apply transformations, build it into analytical models, all of those types of things, which really lend themselves more to the CI/CD process than the models that we had used before. Change data capture, the change data capture tools that allow us to easily connect up to source systems and propagate into our raw or our landing zone area in our cloud data estate any of the schema changes from those source systems. It makes it so it's almost an instantaneous thing. In the past, there were huge projects that would go and implement each of those changes, and made it very, very difficult. The speed of development nowadays is much faster than it was before. We're developing at a much faster pace, and we're developing in a completely different model. So it's not a 6-month project before we deliver anything. It's really, let's deliver quickly. Let's get feedback from the users, from the consumers, from the customers, and let's iterate and move forward. And then really the whole idea of the anti-fragile, right? You think about in the past with databases, if we had some changes that we needed to deploy to our database, again, we'd have our DBA there. We would maybe do some code reviews and say, look, these are the changes that we want to make to this table. We would then have a review for that. We'd have some downtime set up for the database. We would go and make those changes. If something was wrong, then we've got to roll back to a backup. it's really a whole different paradigm that we're in nowadays. And what we're trying to do is make things repeatable, take the people out of every little step of the process, right? So that we can use the tools, we can automate these things, and so we're doing things consistently. We can build in testing, automated testing at different points all throughout our data pipeline, so we can make sure that the data is being loaded properly. We can make sure that the structures of the database are correct and the way that we need them as we move from one environment to the other environment, from a development environment to a QA environment, to a UAT environment, to a production environment. So there have been a lot of changes in the infrastructure and in the tools that are available that really make it so that we can start marrying up CICD DevOps with data projects like we never were able to do before. Let's talk just a little bit about the difference between Agile, CICD, and like DevOps. We hear those oftentimes. I'll hear people use those kind of interchangeably, and if you think about it, they're really different things. Agile, when we talk about Agile, sorry, my computer is trying to talk back to me here. So usually it's just the cat, but now I got, so there we go. Well, it's easy to fix that, just unplug her. All right, so Agile is really the process, right? It's the methodology. And really when we're talking about Agile, what we're talking about is removing the barriers, empowering individuals, producing working software rapidly, right? Collaborating together. So it's really not, Agile is not a tool. It's not implementation. It's not development. It's not deployment. It is, it's really the process, the methodology. Continuous integration, really, that's an engineering practice, right? That's where we're applying the engineering practices, where members of a team integrate work with an increasing frequency, right? Whether that's daily or maybe even hourly. We want to integrate the work that we're doing, all the different members of the team, on a very regular and a very rapid schedule or frequency, thus, approaching continuous, right? That's the whole idea behind that, and that's the integration side. The delivery side really is continuous delivery. It's being able to package up the deployment and have that run in a highly automated way, and being able to include the validation in that process, the testing in that process. And so we're not reliant on individuals maybe making some mistakes in applying this script or applying that script or doing things in the wrong order, right? We can define that process. We can build that process up. And so that as we make a change, the system knows we can orchestrate which steps need to take place, how those steps need to take place, so that can be applied to our different environments the same way. And that allows us to do these things much, much faster, develop and deploy the software, even in our data projects, much, much faster, but also with fewer errors and fewer issues.
The other thing about the Agile process is it's also about visibility. So ability to have the team members on the project to have visibility into the things that you're doing. So sometimes Agile doesn't necessarily, and Rich can certainly attest to this, sometimes Agile, because you run a project using Agile methodology, you may not deliver faster, but you do have ability to have visibility. Team members, executives, sponsors, business users have visibility into your development cycle. And so you've got ability to adjust, ability to track a lot sooner. And so Agile practiced well does provide for, especially for data projects, and certainly outside, but for data projects especially, it provides a place where you can have agility, at the same time visibility and control over those things that normally are a little bit more monolithic. The other big part of Agile is the ability to have expectations defined before you complete the task. And so acceptance criteria, as it's called. And so there are a lot of things that we do as part of that agile process. And again, a lot of the things we're talking about today, as Rich said, are things that we've learned from application development that are being applied today for other assets along the application development process. Maybe it's a data project without a GUI. Maybe it's just a BI deployment. And so as we build the models and as we deploy those models, we deal with these changes, and Agile is the underpinning that allows us to get the team cohesively working together, collaborating, and providing visibility to all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Arkady. And just for those of you that were wondering, that was not Arwen, the data warehousing cat. That was Arkady Kleiner, who's practice director at INTRICITY. So thank you, Arkady, for that.
Pleasure.
Excellent. And then the last piece of this is really the DevOps side, which, if you think about it, the DevOps really it's a discussion of culture and roles, right? We've got our operations group, we've got our security group, we've got our development group. The DevOps is really bringing those together as a culture within our organization and saying, how do we get all of these teams to work together so we can avoid the negative impact of like over specialization and stepping on different people's toes? And how do we cross train these groups? How do we get them all working together so that this agile process, this continuous integration, this continuous delivery can be a smooth process where we're covering all of the bases of the things that we need to do with the development, with the testing, with the monitoring, the notifications, and the deployment of all of this, so that we can make this a smooth process. And as Arkady mentioned, as we've talked about, there are still challenges because, again, behind the scenes, there's data tied to all this. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's something that we've got to be very, very mindful of when you're talking about CICD and data projects. There's data behind this, and so if we create a new column, what are we doing with that? If there's already data in that table, what are we going to do with that column? Are we going to have another script that's going to load data into that column? What type of data? Are we pulling in historical data? Are we creating new data? Again, we've got to be very careful not to create over the top of a table. We don't want to lose data. We don't want to corrupt data. So there's challenges in there that we need to be aware of. And let's move forward here. A little bit about the process. And so I'm sure you've all seen kind of different flows. And Arkady, do you mind talking a little bit about this slide?
Absolutely. So if you look at the life cycle, this is meant to really talk about the process and the life cycle. So continuous integration, continuous deployment process, we're breaking it down between development. So in the development, we are compiling code, we're deploying DML, we're deploying DDL structures, we're deploying perhaps ELT code that's there. And so we want to be able to, when we check that code in, we want to be able to trigger an integration step where we are not connecting to a database, we're deploying that code automatically to that database, or we're deploying that code to wherever the orchestration place will be. The next tier is continuous testing, delivery, and then deployment. So exactly as Rich said, when we are pushing the code out, perhaps we have some scripts that we want to be able to run to validate that the insert statements will still work, that if I'm marking a record as deleted, I could see that the record has been marked as deleted. If I'm running a merge operation, I'm expecting if I had 100 records, if I do a merge, I still have 100 records because I'm not expecting any new records to be created with the sample data set. All of that happens within the testing environment. The next step, of course, is promotion. So staging gives us the ability to test out that our promotion process works, and we're able to stage the data and get it into the staging environment. And last but not least is ultimately we've now pushed it into production, and now we want to be able to monitor and see if our previously established benchmarks are still being adhered to. Do we have the same level of performance? Do we have any issues with errors and error logging procedures that we have in place. And of course, the feedback loop. You see the feedback loop that's coming back to development if we need to make any adjustments or make any changes as part of that process. The idea here and the thing that we're trying to explain with this oversimplified slide is that continuous delivery of code requires collaboration between dev and ops. And a lot of times it's an over-the-wall event. We've deployed ops, here's your run book, go manage it. Here, the two teams are tied at the hip. We are trying to remove fragility. And that's ultimately what this entire conversation, all of the bullet points that Rich had on the other slide, but also the main thing we're focused on is how do we take the human factor out of this equation? Because we, unlike the cat, do make mistakes.
I love the cat theme that's going around.
Excellent. Sorry, I zoned out there for a moment, my Zoom. So then now what I wanted to show was, wanted to kind of walk through a real example. And a few months ago, Kent Graziano from Snowflake, he put out a great blog post about DevOps and Snowflake and how to use some of the Snowflake tool like cloning, zero copy cloning in this process. And so, and that was great. I really enjoyed that. And we've kind of taken that and said, all right, well, how do we kind of tie all this into this whole CICD process? And how do we build this all out using SqlDBM? And so here's just an example. And I just want to run you through this, and then we'll turn the time over to AJ because I'm anxious to see the demo, as you all are. But with SqlDBM, you know, we can come in, we've got our model there. There's all kinds of things that we can do in there. We're going to go and do our design, and we decided we need to make some changes to a couple of tables. Maybe we need to change the data type. Maybe we need to add some columns. We're adding tables, whatever that is. We make the changes, and we can bring in the current structure of the database from Snowflake or from any of the other database systems. We can make those changes inside of SqlDBM, and then we can save out those alter scripts or the create scripts into GitHub. And so, as we mentioned, like with the CI/CD process, once those get replaced into GitHub and we create a pull request and we approve that, then that can trigger a whole process that we can run with different scripts that can actually clone databases. So we want to do a zero copy clone of the Snowflake database so that we know in the QA environment we've got the exact same database. And so when we run this process, the scripts that we're running against that database or those tables in the QA environment, they're going to work the exact same way when we get to the prod environment because we've done a clone. And so we've got the same structure. We've also got the same data. In the past, that was one of those difficult things. It was difficult to get data sets to test with, or in our development environment. We had to go get an approval to have a backup restored, you know, and now in the in the world that we're living in now, we can create a zero copy clone, and we've got that there. And so we can use SqlDBM. We can create our alter scripts. We can put those into GitHub. That can trigger our CI/CD process, GitHub Actions, whatever it is that we're using, to be able to move those scripts forward, run them through our different processes as they get approved. We can promote that from QA to prod, and all of that can be automated. And so we build that same process and say, okay, every time we make a change to these tables, every time we add a column here, whatever that is, we're going to take those alter scripts and then we're going to run it through this process, and it will apply all the testing that we want it to apply. It will go ahead and deploy that, and it makes it such a much easier process than what we've ever had to deal with before. So with that, we'll turn the time over to AJ, and as we've all been waiting anxiously to see the demo. So I will stop sharing.
Ajay, I don't know if you need any additional words from me, but I guess I'll just, for the sake of time, let you go for it. As a reminder, Ajay will show a little piece of where SqlDBM comes in from just the point of managing, management of DDLs in the CI/CD kind of framework, right? So SqlDBM is not kind of like all cure solution for everything, but we'll just talk about the little piece that we do support. And then I'll thank you guys for questions. Let's save them towards the end. We will have time to kind of go on them. I see the last question from Rajiv about SqlDBM's functionality. So I'm sure Ajay will cover that right now.
All right. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. And thank you, Rich, for enlightening us with all the definitions and all the things that are coming up into this new data world, how to tackle and what's upcoming in the future, why data is important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I have also a few slides, and then I'm going to walk through a demo here. So hi, everyone. This is Ajay, Product Strategy Lead from SqlDBM. So today I'm going to talk again. I'm going to reiterate some of the things that Rich already mentioned, but from my flavor, and tell you what it is and why it is important. So DevOps is super hot right now. It's super hot in the industry. Earlier we had, let me just go to the next slide here. For some reason it's not going, so I'll do it like that. Okay. So we know all these technologies. In back old days, it was a waterfall. Now we came into agile. Like Rich already explained, it bridges the gap between your business and your development environment. So you don't have to just throw the requirements off the wall and wait for a year to finish them. And by the time the development finish the product, it gives back, and then they don't even need it, or the requirements have been changed. So to remove that obstacle, the Agile came into place, which says, okay, you can continuously provide the requirements, you can create MVPs, and you can start delivering early. You can deliver in different versions, different batches. So there could be early feedback, there would be early improvements to your whole pipeline. But that was bridging the gap between your business and your dev environment. But now also it was needed to bridge the gap between your operations team and your development team. For that, DevOps came into place. So DevOps allows for your operations team, who is actual users of your software, to compare, to actually give the feedback, and your team would actually, development team would get the early feedback. They would plan, they will fix they will apply the change, then they will also push it all across to your servers to release them. So what it gives us, so DevOps gives us faster delivery, it gives us greater efficiency, cheaper delivery. It also gives us measurable and repeatable process, which is super important. And so DevOps consists of CICD, continuous integration, and continuous development. So integration is basically whatever you check in, all the code is going to be merged, it's going to be tested. And continuous development is you review, stage, and deploy all the way to the server. So similar things that what Rich was mentioning. So why DevOps is super important now, and what are the challenges that we face in the data world? It has been going amazing when it comes to code and application servers. But when it comes to databases, there are different challenges. For example, your code is stateless, but data is not. Data has valuable information, so it is not stateless. Downtime. Application servers are easily swappable, replaceable. You will have load balancers, you can swap in and out. But with your DB servers, it's very difficult. But saying that, the new cloud data warehouse approaches, especially from Snowflake, are removing these obstacles. For example, in Snowflake, you can easily swap tables and do things like that. So the downtime is greatly reduced. Like Rich also mentioned, like you can clone tables, you can clone databases very quickly. Rolling back in a code or in applications is super easy. You can roll back to the previous versions. But with databases, it has been difficult, but it is also coming handy now with again, Snowflake handling it. Like there is a rollback feature, there's a time travel feature. So you can roll back to the previous time when everything was working correctly. So you can utilize all those good features out of Snowflake. Unit testing has been an important part of your DevOps. So that is also very easy in the code environment, in your applications environment, where there are different frameworks and tools available for unit testing. But in database, it's a bit difficult. saying that all the obstacles are slowly getting removed, and the DevOps is also moving into the data world, which makes it super easy and super important, because the data is actually the crux or core of your applications. Everywhere we see, it's a data world. So we need to protect our data. We need to faster deliver it. We need to massage it. We need to use it in a right fashion. So that's where data DevOps is super important. And that's where this terminology of data ops is also new in this world, when it's a DevOps for your data management, right? So I already talked about the challenges. So the stateless and downtime and rollbacks unit testing, so they are being handled easily. And then further in my in this webinar, I'm going to actually show you how SqlDBM handles some of those cases, how you can promote your changes, collaborate, and push it all the way to either you use Azure DevOps or you use GitHub Actions to actually apply the changes all the way to your server, and you can confirm your changes. So let me just walk you through and show you what we have currently in SqlDBM and what's coming up in future to further enhance this amazing feature. So I'm already logged in. I'm gonna go to my dashboard page, and I'll open this project which I created for this webinar, AdventureWorks DevOps. Once I click it, it's gonna load that in the tool. So here we have this project. And let's say for this particular exercise, I want to make some changes. So I can go to any table, and let's say I want to make changes. I'm gonna do some DDL changes here. I'm gonna add a new column here. Very simple change. I'm gonna do test column, maybe provide varchar 50. I got it here. And if I want to, let's say if I want to add another table, a child table, I can click here to add a new table. I got this table. So let's give it a nicer name, child demo, and schema. And maybe I'll make this as a primary key. All right, got it. And let's also get a few more columns here just to make our table look a little more nicer. So I got these 5 columns here in this child demo table. And also, if you click, you have properties on the right side if you want to fine tune your table. And I'm just going to give it a different color so it looks nicer on my diagram here. All right, so we made a bunch of changes. We added this new column, we updated this table, and I added this new table. So I made a bunch of changes. And if you notice, I'm currently on version V8. If I click save, it's going to increment to V9. We can access all our revisions so that we can track back. We can go back to previous version and see all the changes. Let's say if you want to, now you are ready and you want to push this change on V9, you want to release it to production or your server or your dev server. So I can also give a little flag here that this is released and we're gonna release this, so we can easily see if it is released or not by flagging it. So let's click on this to load it again. All right, I got it here. So we have this feature called compare revisions, which is also super handy if you want to see what you changed as compared to your previous features. It comes also very helpful when you are working in a collaboration environment, when there are like 5 or 10 other users making changes, adding revisions. So you can collaborate and find all the changes until you are ready to push them all the way to your server. So here I am comparing my current with my previous. I can visualize, okay, what we changed. We added this new column, good. We added this new table, awesome. And now we want to push this change all the way to Snowflake and use that CICD pipeline. So I can also go to this feature where I have environments. I have configured my dev QC stage environments, and I want to actually compare whatever I have done so far in my SqlDBM environment versus what's in my database. So I can click on both of them and it's going to compare, and it's going to tell me, okay, you have this extra column which is not yet promoted to your dev environment. You have extra table which is not there in dev. Okay, now I want to push these changes to dev. So I would say, okay, generate alter. It's gonna compare them again and it's gonna spit out this alter statement. All right, and now I have this option to push to Azure because my current account is already configured or integrated with Azure DevOps. For example, I can show you right here. If I go to my account settings, there is an integrations option. which gives you options, which give you opportunity to integrate with any of these data ops or repositories. For example, I'm already configured with Azure DevOps. Very simple. You provide your personal token, you provide the repository links, and configure your projects. Similarly, you can configure with GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, AWS Code Commit. So these are all the integrations available. And I have already configured this particular project. So that's why when I generate alter, it gives me option to push to Azure. So if I click here, it's gonna push a SQL file for me to Azure DevOps. So let's take a look. Did I receive any pull requests there? So I go to my test environment, I go to my repositories and go to pull requests. So here, this is my file here. So if I click here, I can see the content of my file. Once it loads, yeah. So I can see, okay, this is the content that we want to push it all the way. I can approve it. I can complete it in my DevOps and complete merge. So it's going to merge it to my main branch. There is one little piece that is currently manual and we need to address it, and we're going to automate that pretty soon, which is currently when you integrate SqlDBM with your Azure DevOps, it puts the file in a certain format. For example, it puts it in the month and the date and the time. So it puts it over there with a specific name. But the tools available around, for example, Schema Change or Flyway, they need files in a very certain format, so they can pick the file, they can pick the versions and deploy them all the way. So the version that Schema Change needs is you put the V and version number, 2 underscores, and whatever description you want to put it for the file. That's how it enables or triggers the pipeline. But that piece, we need to do that, and we're going to automate that. So it will automatically allow you to custom file format and the right location. But for now, for sake of this demo, I'm going to do this little manual process. I'm going to download this file. And I'll say show it in the folder, which is here. And I will change the name of this file that we just downloaded. Maybe I'll put it in the same very format and give it a newer number, 1.1.9. All right, I got this here. And I will go to migrations folder and I'll say I have a new file. And I will drag this file here. So this is a bit of a minor manual process, which we're gonna automate pretty soon. So once I commit this file, it's gonna trigger my CICD pipeline, and I can check that by going to pipelines here, and it's already triggered. So if I click here, it's already running. So I can click here just to see where it is in the process of running this job. So we can go there. So it is running this bash process step. So once that is finished, it generally takes like 30 to 40 seconds. So once it finishes the process, then we can confirm in SqlDBM that are my changes already promoted to dev or not using SqlDBM. One way is, of course, you can go to your environment, to your Snowflake and do it over there. But another way is you can actually do it within SqlDBM by again comparing your model versus your dev environment. So looks like it's done, and we can confirm that by going here. So it already says successfully applied one change script. Perfect. So that's what we wanted. And how do we confirm that? We go back to our environment here. I'm going to close that. And I'll make sure that my dev environment is up to date with all the information. So the account, I'm going to put account admin and continue. So I'm setting up my dev one more time just so it would pull the latest information. Apply and close. So it's going to pull the latest changes that are already pushed to dev. And then we can go to releases and we can compare whatever our latest version versus our dev environment. So it's gonna run this comparison between my dev server and my model. And voila, we can see here that the child demo is already pushed to dev. And another table that we were updating was dim scenario. It has this test column. So that's that's how you can make changes without writing anything, but visually. Again, like Anna mentioned, it is only the DDL or metadata information that we help to resolve in this puzzle to push it all the way from your designing ERDs to all the way to your Snowflake servers. So you can automate that, you can collaborate, you can make changes and enjoy your life.
Love it.
All right. That's it from me, and open for any questions if you have.
Yes, Ajay, there were a couple questions, so let me kind of just scroll back. So you mentioned this this renaming thing that you're doing. So the question is, why not just rename the file and move the file in Azure DevOps itself? Why download it?
Yeah. Either way, it will work both ways. So either you rename the file and move it to migrations, or you would download and do it. Same thing.
And you mentioned that SqlDBM is looking to automate that part as well.
Yes. So what we are doing, it's already actively being worked on. We realized it as soon as we released that to actually perform all the way automation, we have to cater all the products which are around, which are like Schema Change or Flyway. So they receive those, they accept the files in very certain formats, so they can track the version control and put the right things in the Schema Change. For example, I already have this Schema Change, and if I show you, it runs all those changes, and it needs the file in certain formats, so you can put the description and other versions and all that.
And there's a question from Rajiv. So you're using Schema Change underline. I guess you just answered that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And are there is this the only way to do, or are there any other tools that that people should look at?
Yeah, there is Schema Change. There is Flyway. There is Jenkins. Those are the ones that I'm aware of. Very simple to use, and you can use any of them. With GitHub Actions, you can use if you are using GitHub. If you want Azure DevOps, you can create your pipeline and do it that way.
Yeah, Liquibase. There's a bunch of tools out there.
Perfect. Ajay, there was a question if this works with AWS code commit. You mentioned what are again the integrations that SqlDBM has today?
I can show you one more time here. So we have Azure DevOps, we have GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, and AWS code commit. So you can integrate with any of those.
Got it. Thank you. And this another question. I'm not sure if this is for Rich. Maybe this would be better for your case, for you to answer. How to implement automated testing for database CICD, and what should be tested with database CICD pipeline?
So there's a lot of things that we'll test with, and there's a number of types of. I mean, we mainly look at it two types of tests: data completeness and accuracy tests. You know, so if we've got relationships between tables, if we've got columns that should have no null values, all of those types of things. If we make changes to the database, we want to make sure that all of those, any tables that we're applying those changes to, that everything as far as data completeness and accuracy still is in place, that we haven't caused any issues with that. And then there's also some business relevance tests. So some clients that we work with, you know, there are certain things within their business that maybe are not necessarily a data completeness or a data accuracy as far as the database is concerned type of a test. But there are certain business type of tests, like for example, if we make a change to a table, and maybe we're making a change to the claims table and we're in the insurance industry, we need to make sure that anything that we've done to that table, we need to make sure that there's no claims in there that, you know, we haven't caused an issue with the dates or anything in that database when we're changing structures of the table, so that we've got claims that are in there with a date that's before the policy was enacted, maybe something like that. So there are a lot of different types of tests that you can plug in with the number of tools, like DBT, those types of things. There are a lot of automated tests that you can build in along with in the CICD pipeline. So yeah, lots and lots of things. Arkady, go ahead.
One thing to add is we've been also leveraging Great Expectations and working with the team at Great Expectations. So it's another mechanism for sort of getting some of those asserts that we would normally put in. You know, 1 + 1 = 2. We can do some of those things with data as well. We are expecting certain results to come back from the query. We're expecting certain number of rows to be returned, certain number of columns to be there. So those are some of the things that we're putting in place as well.
Yeah, and the nice thing is we can build those all into the pipeline, so we don't have to load this all up, then go and kick off a whole bunch of QA and testing scripts and manually review all of those. We can build all those into the process. So.
Well, this sounds like a separate topic in itself to
Indeed,
me.
indeed.
Yeah.
There's a question on chat as well about control tables and being able to push those. Again, this topic is important because all of us as practitioners have done things our own way in projects, and sometimes differently on different projects. The idea is to standardize and to be able to use a continuous process. So if you look at what we're doing with SqlDBM, we are forward engineering, we're making the changes, we're able to communicate those changes. That's where that process begins. But there are other things, obviously, that are part of it as well. You know, we've got schema, the next part is data, the next part is testing. So the idea is to pull all of these things together. And while you may be doing things in you know, sort of your own home-baked, so homemade ways, the idea is to have a repeatable process in place.
And hopefully that repeatability is possible with the technologies behind.
Florian is asking a great question. So Amundsen and Datakin, there's a lot of really interesting things going on in the metadata space. We are actively doing work with, so there are two projects that came out of WeWork and Lyft. There's some really interesting things that are happening on the data catalog side. Again, a little bit of a different angle at this problem. You know, the data catalogs and specifically metadata tools are quite important. So yes, lots of interesting things going on in that space.
I would just like to add there, Arkady, on that. Yes, we do plan to integrate with other data cataloging tools through APIs. So Data Hub is there and Elation are there. So any of the other tools that you want to integrate once the APIs are available, you would be able to. And the good thing is that Snowflake already released object tagging, so which we are also started working on right off the bat. That is gonna solve a lot of pain points, and while doing your modeling, you can capture some of the elements like PII or GDPR via object tagging also. So we're gonna start supporting object tagging within SqlDBM in a more visual way that you can filter objects or not if you want to. So a lot of things coming, yeah.
Ajay, since you touched this topic, there were a couple more questions on somewhere along the lines of what's on the roadmap for SqlDBM. Can you maybe shed some light on that?
Sure. So regarding DevOps, if we stick to this topic, further enhancements are coming. One of them is simple to automate the file name to let users custom file format, so it will fall in the pipeline automatically. Second thing is we also going to obtain manage the versions that you have on different environments. So when you pull, it will automatically find what version of dev you are. Maybe your dev is on version 9, but your QC is on version 6, and production is on version 1. So you would be able to see what different environments are on this releases option. And that would be regarding DevOps or data ops. But other than that, we have object tagging, we have API. They are coming. We're going to cover all different other objects available on the databases, especially from the Snowflake point. We are working on stored procedures functions, which are scheduled to come next month, and sequences. And then along with that, we are also working on the object tagging to support Snowflake even better. So that's what the immediate roadmap is for next 3 to 4 months. So super busy.
I'm excited for that indeed. Folks, I got a little lost with questions. Rich, Arkady, do you see anything that might be worthwhile answering right now that's not related to the tool itself? Because the tool questions I can give to Ajay.
I think there was a question about
okay.
recommendations on educational materials and articles. I think this webinar certainly touches on it, and if there's some folks asking for more in-depth demos specific to AWS or perhaps Bitbucket or Azure DevOps, I think those are great things to touch on. I think the space is developing, and again, the fact that we have interest and hooks coming in from SqlDBM changes this dramatically, because again, that's where it all begins. And so the more capabilities we have to integrate, we'll certainly do more. Intricity does Protalks, and certainly as part of this series, perhaps we'll do another follow-up from an education perspective.
Yeah. One question that I noticed is keep coming. Yes, currently when you push the changes, we take it as a single file instead of letting user to pick and choose objects they want to push. But that will be coming soon as well, where there will be little check marks there you can pick, and then you can promote only those changes. So that will give little more granular control there. Yeah.
Perfect. And Ajay, another question that repeated twice: what are the database types that are supported in SqlDBM today, and what are the what other DB types are going to be added?
Database types. Okay. If you go to the home page, you will see very clearly here we have support for 6 different databases as of now, which are cloud ones are your Azure Synapse, Snowflake, Redshift. Non-cloud are a SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL, even though they can be used on RDS in a cloud fashion. But other than that, what's coming down the line in SqlDBM world is we get a lot of requests for Oracle, NoSQL, Teradata. So those are the 3 hot in the pipeline to be added down the line.
Perfect. Thank you. Are you going to release any certification for the tool?
Certification. There we are planning to have some education materials to bring our clients good on speed, and also this is a really good thought of certification to clear some level of modeling certification. So there has been talks. There is no concrete plan as of now, to be absolutely transparent.
Sounds good. On materials, I'm also going to share a link to a Medium article from one of Snowflake data heroes, Tomas Sapotic. He wrote a similar, just like what Ajay just showed, from SqlDBM to Azure DevOps. Tomas wrote an article on Snowflake CICD with GitHub Actions. I know people asked about that one. We get asked a lot on our demos. SqlDBM is really more of a tool behind, but this could be a good instruction to follow. Okay, and I have, okay. That's not a question. That's a comment. I think that's okay. Ajay, what about rollbacks? With multiple changes being included in one migration script, how would I roll back one of the changes from one migration script versus versioning on a per object basis?
It won't be automatic as of now, since we do not allow pick and choose. But until that point, if you want to just roll back one of the changes, you can just roll back here. Let's say you do not want the child demo table. You simply say, I don't want it, and you delete it. You make a change in your ERD, and then you push this change. So when you push this change, it's going to drop the table. It's not a very straightforward that you roll back to a certain point, but you have to do manual effort to roll it back as of now. Yes, it is roll forward. Sorry. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I think we tried closing every question. I do apologize if we missed a couple. I think what would be good, maybe follow up with us via email. Just email either ourselves at SqlDBM, just clients at SqlDBM.com, or Intricity. Again, SqlDBM covers we're a product, right? We're just a software company. You would probably want to speak to Intricity in case you're looking for advice, to work with them as an implementation partner, things of that nature. So
yes, I'm going on a vacation after longest time. I'm going to attend a wedding in Seattle.
That's great.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, Ajay, you're doing a lot of this videos, so
Yeah.
good that you're getting some time off. Wonderful. So we're top of the hour. Again, yes, this has been recorded. I will share recording on YouTube so everyone can watch this. Please share it. Leave us comments and tell us what else you'd like to see in the tool. And we'll maybe add it to the pipeline. We'll try at least.
All right.
Thanks,
Alrighty.
everyone.
Thank you. Have
Have
a
an excellent
fabulous
day.
day, week, life. We'll see you out there.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.